New START nuclear treaty was flawed, says senior U.S. official. Iran-U.S. start crucial talks in Oman as confrontation looms. Japan PM wins Trump backing ahead of snap election. Japan to restart world's biggest nuclear plant. A senior U.S. official has sharply criticized the now-expired New START nuclear arms treaty, calling it inadequate for today's security landscape. Thomas DiNanno, the U.S. Undersecretary of State for Arms Control, said the agreement was flawed because it failed to cover the full range of nuclear weapons and did not include China, a country with rapidly expanding nuclear capabilities. Speaking in Geneva a day after the treaty expired, DiNanno stressed that these gaps exposed major weaknesses in the pact's design and limited its effectiveness in addressing modern global threats. Iran and the United States have begun high-stakes negotiations in Oman, aiming to bridge deep divisions over Tehran's nuclear program, but disagreements about the scope of the talks threaten to derail diplomacy and raise fears of another Middle East conflict. The discussions are expected to follow an indirect shuttle diplomacy format, with Oman acting as mediator. Iranian officials say their demands have already been passed to Washington, though formal talks had not yet started. At the center of the dispute is what should be on the negotiating table. The United States wants broader discussions covering Iran's ballistic missile program, support for regional armed groups, and human rights concerns. Tehran, however, insists the talks focus strictly on nuclear issues and has warned that involving U.S. Central Command or regional military officials could jeopardize the process. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff are expected to lead the delegations in Muscat, with reports also suggesting Jared Kushner may participate. Tensions remain high. President Donald Trump has warned that bad things could happen if no deal is reached, while the U.S. has increased its naval presence near Iran. Tehran has responded with threats of retaliation against any military strike and cautioned Gulf states hosting American bases that they could become targets. Iran considers its missile program a non-negotiable red line. In a show of strength ahead of the talks, state media reported the deployment of the long-range KHORRAM-SHAHR-4 missile at an underground base. Still, Iranian officials have hinted at possible flexibility on uranium enrichment, including transferring highly enriched uranium and considering a consortium arrangement, while demanding the lifting of sanctions reimposed after Washington withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal. Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi has received a strong public endorsement from U.S. President Donald Trump, just days before Japan's snap elections, a vote that polls suggest her coalition could win by a landslide. Trump praised Takaichi as a, quote, strong, powerful, and wise leader who loves her country, offering his, quote, complete and total endorsement. He also confirmed she is expected to visit the United States in March, as both nations work toward a major trade and security agreement. Takaichi, Japan's first female prime minister, is riding a wave of popularity since taking office in October and is aiming to secure a commanding mandate to push economic and defense reforms. Polls indicate a decisive victory may be ahead. Surveys suggest her Liberal Democratic Party could surpass the 233 seats needed for a majority, and possibly exceed 300 seats, giving the ruling bloc a potential two-thirds supermajority in parliament. Her conservative stance, including tough rhetoric toward China and support for stronger defense policies, has drawn global attention. Yet she has also gained surprising backing from younger voters in Japan's rapidly aging society. Financial markets have shown some nervousness over her proposed $135 billion stimulus and tax cuts, which could add to Japan's already massive debt. Still, analysts say bond markets would likely restrain excessive spending if needed. With Trump's backing and favorable polling, Takaichi appears well-positioned, but the upcoming election will determine whether her early momentum translates into lasting political power. Japan is set to restart the world's largest nuclear power plant next week, marking a major step in the country's return to atomic energy after the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, says it plans to power up a reactor at the Kashiwazaki Kariwa facility on February 9th. The unit was briefly restarted in January, but shut down after a monitoring alarm sounded. Officials later confirmed the alert was triggered by a configuration error, not a safety threat, and the settings have now been corrected. Commercial operations are expected to begin on or after March 18th, following another full inspection. For now, only one of the plant's 7 reactors will return to service. The facility has remained offline since Japan halted nuclear operations in the wake of the earthquake and tsunami that caused meltdowns at Fukushima. But energy-poor Japan is now turning back to nuclear power to cut fossil fuel dependence, support rising electricity demand, including from artificial intelligence, and meet its carbon neutrality target by 2050. Still, the restart remains controversial. Local opinion is sharply divided, with about 60% of nearby residents opposing the move. Critics warn the plant sits near an active seismic fault and recall that the area was hit by a powerful earthquake in 2007. Despite the concerns, the restart signals Japan's accelerating shift toward nuclear energy as it balances safety fears with long-term power needs.